Welcome to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast, where we explore the future and what this means for your leadership. We ask the big questions. What's happening on the horizon? What does this mean for us? And most importantly, what skills do I need now for leadership of the future? It's time to explore. Let's go.
Hi there, Zoe Routh here, your friendly neighborhood Canadian Australian, and I'm delighted to be back for a solo-sode. And we're talking about why it's so difficult to collaborate and how we might go about changing the systems behind the scene so that we can have better outcomes as we come together to solve collective issues. Woohoo! Let's do it. So on Planet Human, we've got a bit of Planet Human happening. Arianna Huffington, this just came out. Arianna Huffington of Thrive Global is partnering with OpenAI, and they are going to bring Thrive AI Health out. So basically, you're going to have ChatGPT creating this health app where you can have your own individual ChatGPT coach working with you. And I'm not sure about you, I have the premium subscription to ChatGPT, and I use the chat function on my phone where you can have a conversation with the bot. And it's like having a real conversation. They're always cheerful, they're always helpful, always detailed, and they have the answers to many different things at their fingertips. Anything from give me a recipe to give me book recommendations to give me the latest insights on blah topic. It's quite amazing. So Thrive Global is going to use all of their content and have one specifically integrated with chat so that they have a health app. So the idea here and why it's important is this is the signal or pathway that we're on where we're going to have very customized chat bots working with us as our own behind the scenes coaches. That's what the health app is all about, is creating this personalized coach for us to help us take control of our own personal well-being. So for personal trainers, for health coaches, life coaches, this signals a big deal because not everybody has thousands of dollars to spend on these high touch experiences. This kind of equalizes all this body of work and knowledge and makes it accessible to heaps more people for a lot less money, which is a great thing. I think it's great that people will be able to get really useful, tailored health information, health support, and health structures around them so they can take control of their well-being in that way. I think that's fantastic. I still believe, though, that beyond the chat robot, people will still want to talk to another human to help contextualize it, to help soundboard it, to help with reassurance and basic connection. So if you are a health coach and you're going, woe is me, it spends the death knell of my work, I think no. Think about how this can actually support your work. And I'm thinking about this in my context as well. So the executive coaching that I do, the group teamwork that I do, it's high end, it costs a lot, it's a big investment. What else do I have to support my clients in between times they make that face-to-face investment? And that drip feeding easy access app or chatbot is essential. At the moment, I have it through video platforms through Amplifiers Academy as a way of accessing that. It's not a chatbot yet. That's the future though. So you can have Chat to Zoe, the Chat Zobot. That's on the cards. That kind of thing is coming. So think about it in the structure of your workplace. How can you start to think about integrating these AI chatbots as a way of supporting your clients and your customer service in a very personalized way, which will amplify your reach and your support of the people that you serve? On Planet Zoe, what's happening is Olympus Rising is still with the editor. Thank goodness. I have a little bit of a break from writing my fiction. That's the 4th book in the series. I can't believe I managed to produce this thing. It's almost like a blur to me. And it's quite a good book. There's going to be a lot of work in the rework. I can tell that already. So he should get that back to me by the end of July. And it'll be out towards the end of the year or in the new year. So hold your horses. We're still working on the rest of the novels first. As I mentioned, I've got the Power Games research surging ahead. I'm doing interviews with different leaders about their experiences with exercising power in the workplace and the receiving end of the misuse of power. And that's fabulous. Again, go to the survey. The link is in the show notes if you want to contribute and be part of that. Registrations are open now for Grace Under Fire, How to Navigate Power Games. That's a workshop webinar series that I'm launching in September. There are only 10 spots in the pilot. A couple of them are gone already. So if you want to be part of that, link is in the show notes. And once those 10 spots are gone, that's it. And don't know when I'll be running it next, probably not before 2025. So if you want to get in on that, we'll dive deep into power dynamics in the workplace and how you can show up and stay above the fray, stay out of the disaster zone. Personally, we're heading into ski season and it's been a miserable start to the show so far. The snow is patchy. We've been up once, we skied half a day, and I tell you, Japan has really ruined skiing in Australia for us. Unless it's deep powder and full coverage, we're not interested. So yeah, patchy start to the season. Hopefully things come good for August, where we have quite a few bookings. I hope all is well in your patch of the world. So let's get into it. So I was sitting with a client and she was moaning about how difficult it is to get her collective group of individual professionals together to problem solve. They are mandated to have a collaboration. And she said, raising her eyebrows and rolling her eyes, there is so much academic wankery that happens around the table. First of all, love that term. I think it's hysterical. Academic wankery. Let's dig into what that actually means. It means that in a collaboration, people are brought to the table because they are experts in their field. They all have something of value to offer. Fantastic. When we look at that issue through the challenge of leadership maturity, what we find is that when we have built our sense of ego and sense of self on our expertise, to then be shoved at a table, expected to share our expertise, we only go through the lens of, this is what I know, therefore I am right, based on my experience, my accolades, my academic credentials. And if that's where we stop in terms of how we think we need to show up in a collaboration, it creates all sorts of problems, not least of which is the one-upmanship of, well, I know better because I have 3 degrees and you only have 2. I've been working in the industry for 20 years, you only have 5. That kind of ridiculous competitive nature. And that competitiveness becomes a power struggle in some collaborative arrangements or situations. So why is it at stake? First of all, or why does it happen? First of all, I think the leadership maturity of the individuals is at play. The second thing is, if we are in the leadership stage of leadership maturity, if we in the expert stage of leadership maturity, what we need to do is to learn new skills. And the first skill is a mindset one, where we come to the table and we need to respect that there are other smart people at the table who have different kinds of expertise, or perhaps even more expertise than I do. And the recognition that other people have other types of expertise outside of our own view of the world, like unless people did the same pathway as I did, their experience doesn't count. I remember this actually from my own earlier stages of my own professional journey. When I first came to Outward Bound, I'd had 9 years working in outdoor leadership, and I felt like I knew a lot. In fact, I had a lot more experience than other people around the table. And when we were talking about safety in managing particular situations, particularly in water-based activities, I very much took an expert approach. I've had 9 years of doing this professionally. I know what I'm talking about. I've been doing this in Canada. I've led 3-week and 6-week canoe trips. So I was listing off on my expertise, my experience, and kind of basically shoving that on the table, saying, I know best. What I didn't do is acknowledge that just because people didn't do canoe trips in Canada doesn't mean their experience isn't valuable. Oh my God, what a breakthrough concept. The arrogance of it all. Except we don't think of it as arrogant at the time. When we're in that stage of bolstering our own expertise and career based on our learning and our accolades and our achievements, we see it as contributing. And so to dismantle that a little bit by coming together in a collaboration is quite confronting. We have to look around the table and dial down the arrogance or the ego that can come into play going, wow, okay, I still have more to learn. And perhaps somebody else's journey is equally as valid as mine, just different. This is the first baby step into creating an ecosystem that is for effective collaboration. The next aspect of this I wanted to look at in terms of power struggles has at its root cause, or one of the root causes or contributing factors of power struggles and collaborations, is a broader notion in our Western culture about individual achievement. This kind of celebration that each of us can forge our own path. We're on the hero's journey. We can rise to the occasion. We can create our own experiences and our own outcomes. Great. It's energizing. A lot of literature has been written on this, and we kind of live our careers and aspirations based on this rugged individualism. Except doesn't really help when we're brought again to the table to collaborate as a collective, as a community. How do we marry the two? Because what we find is some of the toxic behaviors that arise in this, if rugged individualism is given primacy, is we have credit stealing and blame shifting, two of the most toxic behaviors that's emerging in my research. By the way, I have a survey out at the moment of my readers and my listeners around how you experience power games in the workplace. If you want to contribute your perspective and experience to the research, I would love that. You can also get a free copy of the outcomes of the results and get acknowledgements in my book, Power Games, when it comes out. I'll put a link in the show notes. It just takes about 6 minutes to do that survey. So the results in the survey so far are showing that blame shifting and credit stealing are two of the most toxic leading behaviors you see in teams, in collaborations too. Why is it so? I hark it back to this rugged individualism piece. And really, as leaders, if we are to work collaboratively, and I believe that collaboration is the future of leadership, we need to manage the polarity of individual recognition and collective success. It's not one or the other. If we ask the expert to dial down their ego and to be altruistic in forging the path for the collective outcomes, that's going to feel like a loss. If we say, let's give up on the collective success and just forge ahead and come together and see how we can maximize individual outcomes, well, we have a toxic workplace culture where it's competitive instead of collaborative. And competitiveness is useful in some contexts, but not for solving big complex issues. So how do we go about doing this? My solution to some of the power struggles in, not all of them, but some of the power struggles in collaborations is to learn to manage the polarity of individual recognition and collective success. So we go to Barry Johnson's works on polarity management to help us unpack this a little bit. And if you're a subscriber to the podcast, through my email newsletter list, you will get a handout and a self-assessment that can help you with this. In the show notes, there will be also a graphic that can help show you how we actually lay this out and work this through. The first aspect of working with polarities is to identify the poles. And I've worked out the two are individual achievement or recognition and collective success. And we need to manage the tension between the two. When we do positive individual success or achievement and recognition, it has a really positive effect. People feel engaged, they feel recognized, they feel like they're progressing. And if you look at Dan Pink's work in his work Drive, that idea of mastery happens here. Mastery, purpose, autonomy, and recognition sits in that upper left-hand side box. If you imagine a quadrant, the positive expression or positive use of individual recognition sits there. So it's quite healthy. There is a downside though. If we overdo that and don't balance it and manage the tension with collective success, what we have is toxic competitiveness, credit stealing, blame shifting, all that kind of stuff. Rivalries, silos, even sometimes you have ground splitting and sabotage. So a lot of the four devils behavior can slide into that bottom left-hand quadrant. In the top right-hand quadrant, we have the positive expression of collective success. What happens when we have positive collective success is that we have that sense of camaraderie. We have a sense of progress. We have a sense of community. And in fact, the sense of community is really critical to this. And it's the way that we can bridge the two. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. this sense of support and engagement sits in collective success. If we overdo it, though, there's some negative aspects of that. And what we see happening, if we have too much of this all about collective success, we can lose our sense of individual accountability. We can become demotivated because we're not getting any personal recognition, and over-reliance on group. We can actually almost experience groupthink and echo chambers if we don't do this well. So there's a whole bunch at stake if we don't manage this tension well. The third space, as Barry Johnson talks about it in Managing Polarities, is what are we going to do this? How do we go about managing this tension, creating systems that can help us sway easily and healthily between the two? There's a couple. The first is KPIs, key performance indicators. How do we structure our results and measures so that we can have a focus both on individual effort as well as collective success? We need to have a balance across the two. And this comes up a lot in CEO compensation packages where boards want CEOs to have KPIs so they're accountable. And then all hell breaks loose because they do a crappy job of it. Typically, it involves like a bunch of projects listed or outrageous targets, which are not healthy ways of developing KPIs. For KPI development, always advocate for Stacey Barr's work. You can get her 2 books. One is Prove It, Evidence-Based Leadership, and the other one is Performance Measurement, Practical Performance Measurement. It's a tough title, it's a textbook, and it takes you through her entire methodology of how to develop measures that matter, that actually help us prove that the work that we're doing is producing the results that we want. So that's how you do KPIs well. For a CEO, it's always, and I talked about this recently on LinkedIn too, the fact that Elon Musk got $46 billion payout, and because he's the CEO, and it was listed into an early version of his contract that if Tesla shares produce amazing results, he'd get this slice of the pie. Who is responsible for $46 billion worth of results? Not one single human, it's a collective. So this actually still irks me. And it comes back to this idea of how responsible is the CEO alone for results. Nobody's responsible for results alone. There's some things that he does that contribute to the ecosystem. So how do we manage that? We have individual KPIs and collective success KPIs. So that's the first thing. The second thing that we can do is all about the reporting on that. So how do we keep people accountable through individual commitments as well as collective outcomes? And the reporting will help create this transparency around our progress with that, to help people skiving off into the shadows, which can often happen in the collaboration piece. The third thing is rituals. So rituals of acknowledgement. How do we build rituals of acknowledgement for individual contributors as well as celebrating our collective success? We need to do both in a healthy way that ensures that people are actually getting the recognition for their contribution to the whole. That doesn't mean taking a $46 billion payout. So that is what I suggest and recommend for how we balance this individual recognition piece and the collective success, which will start to unpick some of the power dynamics that exist in collaborations, which is essential if we're going to move forward. So that's the show for this week. Next week we have Amy Clymer. She is a creativity guru, and I can't wait to share her with you. In the meantime, live with grace, lead in service, live well, lead well.
You've been listening to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast. To find out more about leadership of the future or to contact Zoe, go to zoerouth.com.